Shalom, everyone. That means hello in Hebrew. And welcome to the second episode of My Two Cents. Today, we're having a conversation about Jewish culture among young people and the dangerous rise of anti-Semitism, not only in the US, but in other countries as well. We had many discussions during the important Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
You know Yom Kippur?
Joining this episode are very close friends of mine from all across the globe. My dear friends from Israel, Ronnie Levav and Omri Rosengart. My friend Hannah Friedman from Los Angeles. My friend Ezra Rosenthal from my hometown of Washington, D.C. And also my close buddy Philip Keisler and my best friend Jonah Rosenberg. Join me and my friends as we tackle this issue on together and have an important discussion. All right, guys, so let's just get to the topic now. All right, so have you been seeing a rise in anti-Semitism after the election of Donald Trump?
I mean, I see it on social media, but I don't feel it personally. But I don't think he's good as president. So whatever comes with the fact that he's president, it's not good, even if it's these opinions, even though he's like pro-Israel, kind of. He's like a president that's for us. I heard, I'm not that good in politics, but I think he's like in our favor. But the fact that he's like the president, it's not good for anyone. So I don't actually like the fact that he's by our side. I feel like it's a for me. Like I don't even. He's bad in so many ways that I don't even care that he's for us.
Trump's position of power has given it's definitely given a voice to a lot of like far right hate groups that have always been there. It's not that they weren't there before, it's just now they have a platform.
Yeah, obviously look at things like Charlottesville, people chanting Jews will not replace us, like that's the kind of thing that like we didn't really see under Obama.
Coming down the stairs. You will not replace us. You will not replace us. Hail victory. You will not.
And I think also hate crimes against Jews has hit an all-time peak in I think it was 2019. Since they started keeping track in like 1979. And so I think that like definitely a president who emboldens like white supremacy is going to at the same time embolden anti-Semitism.
After watching the recent presidential candidate debate, there was a time when Donald Trump was asked, are you willing today to call out white supremacists, far right activists, and anti-Semitics, and he just simply refused to do that. So I think that in the US, especially in a country that is almost governed and ruled by politics, when politicians in power say stuff like that and refuse to denounce white supremacists, anti-Semites, it just makes me feel like there's less of a sense of belonging in the country.
I then had to ask my friends about how it feels to be Jewish while traveling to other countries. Personally, have you ever felt in danger because of your identity being Jewish or being from Israel, traveling,
I did had a few incidents in Sri Lanka. I had a few times. People just like, I remember the specific moment of like sitting at a club and like a guy, I saw that he's trying to hit on me and he was sitting next to me and he was like, hey, where are you from? And the minute I said Israel, I just remember him like taking his chair and putting it aside. And I had another incident there. Like I had a few incidents that I saw. No one ever talked bad to me, but I saw by the way people their body language changed, or people did very like extreme things, like taking the chair and going away. I felt it sometimes in Paris, I have to say. Again, only by looks or stuff like that, or by hearing me talking Hebrew. But I feel that for us as Jewish people or Israeli people, I think that we're very aware when we're in different countries. Like I think we put more focus if people are like not nice or not something like that because we're Israeli. So I think we're very like sometimes we even think that even if it's not true because we're used to people having their opinion about us. So I had my time like when I felt it. But I think also because we are who we are, we put a lot more like we're not that like feeling comfortable anywhere. We have countries that like we can't go to still, like we still have things that we can do because of who we are. So we have more awareness of that to other, but yeah. Like I know that now we can go, I think only if you have, you used to not go to Bali. I can't go to Bali.
Really?
Israeli people can go with a passport. And now if you have like a European passport, you can go. But before that, I couldn't go to Bali with an Israeli like passport. It sucks for me because I'm dying to go to Bali. But so you still have that kind of stuff. I mean, we have. I remember when we were in Paris, we heard about an Israeli guy that was in the metro and he was talking in Hebrew, and a few guys just hit him. Like we still have it. We don't hear it a lot.
Yeah.
It happened. I mean, it happened in Paris like this year. That was like this year. So unfortunately, it happens all the time. Still.
I've been to Argentina, and I know that I played in a soccer team there, and in the soccer team there were a lot of anti-Semitic jokes. I mean, of course, like they're my friends, but at some point it got kind of tiring. I'm not even sure they knew I was Jewish, but I would say in places other than the U.S., I mean, just the places I've gone to, Argentina. I think that the consensus of anti-Semitism being bad is much more prevalent in the United States than in other countries.
When I went to Israel in 6th grade, so a while ago, but we went to France right afterwards, and like I had gotten a Jewish star necklace in Israel, and my mom like sat me down and she was like, "You cannot wear this in France. Like I don't want you to walk around with this. Like it's too dangerous." So that was a moment that really stuck out to me of like I can't, like I'm so proud to be Jewish. If you meet me here, like that's one of my first things that I'll tell anybody. But it was really hard to know that like my mom was telling me that. And then when I traveled with my school in Europe, we would have at least 2 or 3 armed security guards with us the entire time, just like trying to make sure that nothing would happen to us. And like especially in Poland, like there were a few things that we saw that are a little bit disturbing, but I'm definitely very aware of anti-Semitism when I'm traveling in Europe. And honestly, also in America, like even if I'm getting in an Uber with somebody, like I will not mention anything about Israel. I will not mention anything about Judaism, like especially with the rise of like anti-Semitism recently. Like I just do not feel comfortable mentioning that when they're in like a position of power and like something could happen.
That simple question, where you from, man? I'm from Israel, or Tel Aviv, or everybody. Of course, you choose your words, and I'm saying it because a year ago when I came here, I was more quiet about it, but I think it was more something with myself.
Have you guys heard like any anti-Semitic comments or observed like actually like anti-Jewish behavior like from a peer like in school, or have you ever had like to correct someone? It's like, hey, this is not right. This is like, this is offensive. You need to stop.
I like grew up in a very vibrant Jewish community, like went to Jewish school my entire life basically. And I'm from Los Angeles, so it's a huge Jewish community. So nobody from my peers ever, just because everybody was Jewish. But I've definitely faced anti-Semitism in terms of like there was I don't know if you know Westboro Baptist Church, but they went to my school and protested us for like being a Jewish school in Los Angeles.
There are vivid memories, when I was a child, my mom and I were walking down the street or something, and there were, protests against Israel, stuff like that. I actually walked to school every single day, and I passed the Israeli embassy, and sometimes there were protesters out there waving, signs and protest signs with swastikas. So in moments like that, I felt a little bit in danger.
I remember a few years ago, when we were in high school together, and some pamphlets were handed out in your neighborhood of anti-Semitic tropes. I remember that, and you sent me a screenshot of it. What were they saying on those on those pamphlets, and what happened? Like, how did it make you feel when that happened?
So when I received them, the pamphlets were just some photocopied gibberish. It wasn't necessarily a pamphlet, it was almost a compilation of notes. They were barely legible, but they obviously had some forms of, swastikas and anti-Semitic writing. I was almost surprised, just because in Northwest DC, it's a very accepting neighborhood. And yet, it shows that even if you try to move to a neighborhood where, people are very accepting, or another country, there's always someone who will, try to degrade Jews, or, discriminate against Jews no matter where you go. So it was almost a wake-up call, in the sense of, this is real, you can't really escape it.
Another topic that I wanted to bring up was how my friends felt connected to their Jewish identity and how they identify themselves. So have you ever felt like you had to prove your Jewish identity to someone?
There have been a few times. I think that my dad's Jewish, but my mom is Christian, and so standard is basically for Judaism to be like passed down from your mother. So if your mother's Jewish, then like you're considered Jewish. My outlook has always been that like I was raised Jewish. Like I went to like Jewish school when I was younger. Like I had a bar mitzvah. Like I very much consider myself Jewish, and that was a choice that my parents made to like raise me Jewish and then let me decide after that. And so there have been times that when people were like, "Oh, you're not actually Jewish," when they find out about that, and like that always seems like, on just like a practical level, like we're like a very small portion of the population. Like it's maybe not the best move to like be pushing people out of their religion, but then also just like feels very like exclusionary. And like I think for me at least, I think Judaism it's probably like an ethnicity, obviously, but it's also like a set of beliefs. And I think that like just as you can convert to Judaism, I think the fact that like I was raised Jewish, like I feel like my mom is Christian, my dad's Jewish, as opposed to the opposite. I don't feel like that makes a big difference. And I feel like it's always a little annoying when people are like questioning my Judaism based on that, because I don't think it really matters.
Going back into my childhood, I have had I have had a lot of friends that might have been, I guess, ignorant to, what Jewish identity means, or have preconceptions about what being Jewish means. So, with a last name like Rosenberg, they're like, "Oh, you're not Jewish, but you're Jewish. What's up with your last name?" And I mean, I haven't necessarily had a, urge to prove to anybody that I'm Jewish. Maybe, to some of my Jewish friends. In terms of proving, I guess, my Jewish identity to non-Jews, I would say that I haven't really needed to do that. But the times where I've had to prove myself, or felt like I've had to prove myself to other people that I'm Jewish, have been usually at, events like bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs.
Sure. Okay.
In in the crowd, in either a bar or bat mitzvah or some synagogue event, I'd say that, like with the last name like Rosenberg, people look at me and expect me to know some sort of prayers or know what to do. For me, it all depends on the way that the question is presented. If it's more like an inquisitive, I'm curious to know about your background, I mean, I'm all for that. I'll tell them, that I'm from Vietnam. I'll tell them that I'm Jewish. My parents are Jewish. But, it's like, how are you Jewish? It's like stuff like that. I almost get like a sense of anger because, you know, they don't believe my identity, but for a matter of fact, that is what I am. Or yeah, I am what I am. And in terms of that, I sometimes feel like I have to prove to myself that, or prove to other people that I'm Jewish, but I haven't really needed to, I guess, prove that to many people in my lifetime.
But that's maybe the little bit humor in life. To the Jewish one, you need to prove it sometimes. It happened to me last time. Now, when I was back home, I went to the Kotel, to the Western Wall, and I came with a friend who doesn't really look Jewish Israeli, let's say, and I came with my tattoos and everything, and like the Orthodox, like the religious one, like they asked me, "Are you Jewish? What are you doing here?" Like, I needed to tell them I'm Jewish, you know.
So it's interesting because I grew up conservative, which is like the middle ground, I guess, between Reform and Orthodox. So in my youth group, they literally called me the super Jew. Like they thought I was the most religious Jew they ever met, and I like knew everything. And if it went to like leading any services or anything, they'd ask me to do it. But at my school, there was definitely a stigma around me because a lot of women aren't allowed to lead services or read Torah or anything, and I have experience doing that. And there was definitely times where like, oh, like she's Jewish, but she's not like Orthodox. Like there's definitely nobody ever said something like that, but there's definitely that type of stigma around conservative Judaism. And my high school was pretty accepting, and there were other conservative people at my high school, but that was definitely felt among some people.
I gotta tell you, I wasn't aware of this. It sounds that there is more of this topic with you in United States than with me, for example. Like, and here I have the language, and here, yeah, I'm the Jewish guy, but no one knows it. And I'm. Sometimes we laugh about it in a good way, but on the same way, it's because I know that I'm in the table that I can do it freely, you know. But I wasn't aware. It's interesting. It's interesting fact to know, actually. Interesting.
We then had a fun chat about the Jewish holidays and, of course, the family traditions.
So like, what were like the usual traditions that like you and your family would do for the holidays, like for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but before COVID, like what would you guys usually do?
When usually Rosh Hashanah, we do like a big dinner.
Okay.
And if you're close to religious, you have to eat like there's a few things you have to eat in this. Like if you want to do it all the way, is that you have to dip like an apple and honey to make your ear sweeter. So it's actually cute. I think about it, it's like super cute. And you have to eat like a fish head. So we're gonna be. It's called. It says in English, which means we're always gonna be the head and not the tail. So we eat the head of fish. And Kippur, basically, also I don't do that. My family does, but it's basically a day when people are just like doing with themselves some like thinking about the year, what they did wrong, who can they say forgiveness to. Then a part of it is you don't use the heavy people that really go all the way. It means that it's a day that you can't enjoy anything because you have to suffer, which means we don't watch TV, we don't use electricity. It's days that you have, it's like 2 days, 24 hours maximum from evening until the next day, that you have to like suffer and think about what you did wrong, people around you. It's kind of like I think it's like the last holiday for a new year, new Israel year, that you have to like clean slate. Like this is the holiday that you have to like, when it's over, you have a clean slate, first of all, yourself, and then with the people around you. And that's why you're supposed to be like in utter silence. And there's no cars allowed, like only if there's emergency, there's no cars. It's a beautiful thing to watch actually, because the streets are empty.
I think for my family at least, we would often go to synagogue, and then obviously on Yom Kippur we're not eating a ton, right? But after we'd have like a break fast, with our these few family friends we'd have back in DC, and so that was always really great, definitely. And so I think we'd often have like big feast because after fasting all day you want something substantial.
My mom does like a really good brisket. I feel like that's a classic move for Rosh Hashanah. And then, but mostly focusing on breakfast, like I feel like especially in LA, just because people are more extra, but like there's like rooms full of food, like any food you can imagine, like it's like spread out through like these entire houses, and it's like a party, like because you fast for the whole day, and then like everyone's hungry and you just like eat more than you would have eaten in that 25-hour span. Like it's like the classics, like bagels and lox and like whatever, but then there's like insane like brisket or like I don't even know, like anything you can imagine would be there.
You got everything. It's like all the best food your grandma / mom know how to make, and like this is her moment, she's like, she knows that she can't fail us down. But it depends on the tradition of each family, which is also part of the beautiful thing in Israel and the Jewish. It's not about us Jewish. It's inside you have Jewish from Syria, from Lebanon, from Greece, from Iraq, from Sudan, from Paris. It's like
everywhere.
yeah, so it's fun. That's why the Israeli kitchen is so good, because it's full of all those cultures, so it's just a huge feast. It's like you're getting to a restaurant and you just won the lotto, so you're like, give me everything twice, something like that.
Do you guys ever try to encourage your non-Jewish friends to come and participate in the holidays with you, or to learn about Jewish culture with you?
I definitely do, and I think I do it more as like a having family. Like I go to high holidays. I haven't here since I'm not at home, but I've always treated it more as like a time to be with friends and family, more so than to pray or worship or anything. But I've definitely had friends over for Passover, or like Rosh Hashanah or stuff like that.
People are very fascinated by the way we celebrate stuff. A lot of people just don't know a lot about the Jewish celebrations or holidays. I mean, there's really little. I don't think we don't talk about it. We don't have like, for Christmas for you, it's like you have something to show on social media and stuff, and it's very like the trees and the gifts, and you don't do so many big stuff that you can also see on social media. So when we have a holiday, our friends know about it. It's not like, so I think people don't really know a lot about our Jewish like celebrations. So they're interested about it. They're interested about why we're eating challah and what's behind it, and like this holiday and Kippur and stuff like that. I think people are very, very like interested. I remember when I was in Milan, my friends were like, it was Passover, and they were like, why are you not eating bread? They're like really interested about, really, you don't eat bread because their father didn't eat bread. Like they're very like, why are you not eating bread? Like, oh, because the Bible, I mean, before they came, they didn't have bread. It's very, very interesting to people actually, which is nice, because then you feel like, oh, we do have like happy stuff, or we do have like exciting stuff. It's not Christmas, or Halloween, but it's fine.
On the night of Rosh Hashanah, September 18th, the notable U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died at the age of 87. Justice Ginsburg was known for her fight for women's rights and had a strong voice for the Jewish American community. On the night of her death, how did it make you guys feel? And do you feel like that her death was significant on the night of Rosh Hashanah?
Well, I think since RBG, I think whenever she died, it would be very significant just because of her incredible life and all that she's contributed, not just for women's rights, but for LGBTQ rights and just like a functioning liberal democracy. But I think that there's the idea that like, I think I saw this a lot in regard to like RBG's death. And I think that a lot of people were like posting like cartoons of like her being in heaven now. And like, obviously the sentiment is really nice. Like, you think she was an amazing person. Like, and you want to be like I'm sure she's like above us now, watching us, and like, and I think that like it's a great sentiment, but it also kind of represents a misunderstanding of like what Jews feel about the afterlife, and like that we don't kind of believe in like a heaven and hell dichotomy that is very common in Christian belief, and that RBG is a real trailblazer and for like Jewish Americans. Those kind of cartoons are a little bit like insensitive, and definitely they come from a good place, but it represents a misunderstanding that I think a lot of people have about like what people believe who are Jewish.
Obviously, when such a prevalent, impactful justice dies, who has done so much for women's rights, Jewish rights, it's obviously quite sad, and it's a moment of mourning. So I think that the passing of Justice Ginsburg was very tragic.
And that day, everyone talked about it. All the women in my social media was like on it and like posting stuff that she said and about her and stuff. Yeah.
Those who die in Rosh Hashanah were especially impactful and important because the idea is that God basically helped them hang on till the very last day of the year because we needed them so much. And so I think that is somewhat like beautiful, that idea. I think that it seems very fitting, at least for me, for someone like RBG to get that kind of honor.
I think I really appreciate you guys coming onto the TV show today and sharing your truth, your experiences, and your family stories and your traditions. This was a very, interesting conversation that we had today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I thank you really from the bottom of my heart that we took this time together. And thank you, Norman, personally. And it's good to see you. And it's a pleasure to meet all of you guys, really.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this.
It's good meeting you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Ciao,
you.
Norman. Ciao, Eva. Ciao.